on a longevity stack. I think this is the fun part about doing longevity medicine. This is what I spend a lot of time doing with my clients on a daily basis, finding out where they're at, what their goals are, and then working out a strategy that fits their interest level, their time commitment, and the things that they really want to do. And so, a tactical approach to creating your own longevity stack. Um, this should be fun. Hopefully, we can get it all done in the next 45 minutes. We'll see. But exploring the longevity lifestyle really means making these daily choices, right? We have to not only extend lifespan, but we want to enjoy good health at the end of it. So the key components are diet, exercise, and sleep. And you've heard me say those things a lot this morning. But then the other things that I think we have to touch on are the impact of hormones on our health and aging, stress management strategies. And during the break, we talked a little bit about things like meditation, and we're going to talk more about that. This would not be a longevity talk if we didn't touch on blue zones. I hope that you guys have heard about blue zones, but I think there's a lot of good things that we can glean from those places. And then technology, and we've touched on R rings, and I'll just go in a little bit more detail about some of the tech that's out there. So, we had a question about what can we learn more about the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet, what I tell my patients is it's a novel. And so don't think of the Mediterranean diet as like something that like you've got a 10-week plan that you can go to the grocery store and here's your list. To me, the Mediterranean diet is a lifestyle of eating, and it focuses on the things that are up here. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine, however, says that the vegan diet is probably the best to go with. I could never survive as a vegan. I grew up in West Texas. I've never lived outside of the state. I'm gonna eat some beef, and so I'm gonna have to find a way to be okay with that, and I think I have. So, what about meat? We need to get protein. We've talked about getting a gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight on a daily basis. And from the study that I've done, and I think most people in my shoes would say that beef is okay. So thumbs up to beef, but you can't do it 7 days a week like a ribeye or a porterhouse on the weeknight. Every night is going to make you sick. But I think we should limit it to maybe 2 or 3 times per week. And I want it to be quality meat that I'm getting. Texas Ranger friend of mine in town has a ranch and he raises Akaushi cattle, and that's where you get Wagyu beef from. And so we share a steer about twice a year, about every 9 months. Works out great. It's grass fed. He's not finishing it out on corn. I know where it came from. It goes from his ranch to the butcher to my freezer. Processed foods are going to have numerous stops along the way. So if we can eat fresh food, if it can be grass fed, if we can get lean cuts. The other thing about beef is that we should try for it not to be charred. That's a problem when we're wanting barbecue. Really like brisket, but we need to be careful about charred meats, minimally processed. And then another thing is that if you'll eat vegetables, especially the cruciferous vegetables, with your beef, you're going to have a better impact on your overall health. Part of that, probably most of that, is just that we really need those cruciferous vegetables to help with some of the hallmarks of aging, like the telomere stuff, but there's also some digestive implication as well. So I think you should eat some protein at every meal. I mentioned earlier that it's hard to get enough protein in your diet. You sometimes have to supplement. You can get some amino acids. I like to get extra protein from whey protein. I use a brand. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. What's that bag say on the kitchen counter? What is it? Yeah, I'll think of it later. It might be Progenics. Doesn't seem right though. Yes, it's called Progenics. So Progenics, that's the name of the whey protein that I drink. I've tried a lot of them. This is the only one that tastes good. Christy would argue. After today, who here's not working out? We've got one honest person in the room. Yeah. So so good question. Strength training, yeah. So the point here is if you're going to be an active person and you're working out in some format regularly, and you're shooting for a gram of protein per pound of body weight, it's going to be hard to get there. you're going to be chewing a bunch of meat. And so I've found that it's easier to supplement with a shake about once a day. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can get almost half of it right there. Yeah. 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 Exactly. Okay, so we talked a little bit about intermittent fasting. I want to go into a little bit more detail about it. I think there are two terms for it. Intermittent fasting is what is out there the most. That's what we hear about. I think the better term is time restricted eating. I like to focus on the positive, and for me, that's the time that I get to chow down. Remember that TRE is not really about trying to limit calories. It's that we're trying to hack that thing that happens when we're not eating that's going to create a little bit of AMPK pathway uh, being stimulated. So longer, this was pointed out during the break, longer fast, like a 4 or 5 day fast, like doing a 5 day prolonged fast, is much more effective at stimulating the AMPK pathway and about working on autophagy. But you do get some of it with the intermittent fasting or time restricted eating. Um, One other point is down here at the bottom. It's healthier to eat earlier in the day. So you're going to do better eating from, if you're doing 8 hours, if you're going to eat from 8 to 2 in the day, that's going to work a lot better than eating from 2 in the afternoon till 10 at night. That makes sense to us, right? And so I tended to go like 10 to 6, Monday through Friday, and then weekends are kind of whatever I want to do. But these quarterly prolonged fasts can be a couple of different animals. Some people are really good at this. They've done fasting for a long time. Fasting is still very new to me personally. And so I'm scared to just jump out there and do a 5 day water fast. You guys are all aware that you're going to have to watch some things. You can get yourself medically into trouble by doing one of those. So if you haven't done it, you're not experienced, and you want to get some help with doing a real fast. But the Prolon company that I mentioned earlier, they have a very nice product. It takes a lot of the risk out of it. It's still not easy, but it feels much more manageable, especially if you're going to have to work that week. And of course, we're always going to have to. The last thing you do on vacation is a Prolon fast. Okay, physical activity, talked a lot about this. I mentioned at the break that if I could write one prescription in my family medicine practice that everybody would follow, I would write a prescription for exercise. It matters for all of the reasons that we've already talked about for our heart health, for our muscle mass, what it does for our metabolic function, what it does for our immune system, what it does for mitochondria, what it does for our health span in general. And then we've talked also that we want to strength train 2 or 3 times per week. We want to do HIIT workouts 1 or 2 times per week. And then we want to get some zone 2 cardio a couple of times a week as well. Now, for strength training, I'm a big believer in barbell training. And the reason is because I read a guy's book. He's from Wichita Falls. The book is called Starting Strength, and the author is Mark Ripto. He and one of his buddies, who is an exercise physiologist at Midwestern University, wrote this book together. It's dense, it's nerdy in and of itself, but it sold me on the importance of strength training and why doing barbell training can be particularly effective. He also has really great strategies for how to start doing this and how to work into a stronger protocol with your strength training. So if this is something that you or a family member or a patient really wants to get into, I would highly recommend that book if you don't have a lot of experience already. The big lifts that we're looking at here are the presses. Obviously, your bench press, overhead press, squats and deadlifts are important. You have to do something for your back, pull ups and chin ups, and don't overlook your core. It's critical that we keep our core strong. If you have a weak core, you're going to wind up tearing up your back. You're going to have lots of injuries around your hips. It's really harder on your muscles. So there's a hack that I've got for this. There's a company called X3. It's like the letter X and the number 3. And they've got this system that's got bands that you stretch out, and it's got a bar that you put on. And so it's, if you're going to do bench press, the band goes around your back, it hooks onto the bar, and you just push out while you're standing up. It's great for travel. It's great if you live in an apartment or if you really don't have space at the house but want to work out at home. And the great thing about it is that it only takes about a 10-minute workout to get done in a manner that has been shown in a clinical study to really move the needle on building strength. And so, one of the things that's nice about longevity medicine and being a doctor is I'm always looking for the fastest way to get the important stuff done. And X3 might be one of the things that could do it. I really enjoy weightlifting, and so I stick with that. X3. Yeah, it's just the letter X and the number three. Okay, so HIIT workouts. Guys, we're going to have to breathe hard and break a sweat for exercise to work. And that typically is where HIIT workouts come in. When we're doing this, we're increasing our VO2 max, we're enhancing mitochondrial health, we're burning fat, and we're working on metabolic flexibility. The way you do it is you get warmed up so you don't pull a hammy, and then you do 30 seconds of something hard and fast. You can sprint, but look, if I try that, I'm going to pull a hamstring for sure. So I'm going to swing a kettlebell or I'm going to get on my stationary bike. And I'm going to do one of those two things hard for a while, and then I'm going to stop. I use a little bit different exercise and recovery period. This is a 30-second on, 90-second off for anywhere from 4 to 8 reps. I instead will do 4 minutes of what is called a Tabata, T-A-B-A-T-A. It's something that I learned in CrossFit. It's 20 seconds of work and 10 seconds of rest. And it is grueling. I hate doing these, but you have to. And so I'll take my medicine. Typically, we'll swing a kettlebell when I'm doing a Tabata. So 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. So you can also do this on a rowing machine. You can maybe do it in a swimming pool, down and back, rest for a minute, down and back, rest for a minute. Um, it's important to make sure that you're healthy for this. So if you've got patients that you're sending out there and they just got off the cath table and they got some blockage, we got to be smart about who we're telling to go do these types of intensive exercises too. So just a disclaimer that you guys all know anyway. Okay, zone two training. So this is when you're out for a brisk walk or a slow jog. You can still talk to your buddy or your spouse that's going along with you, but every few words you're going to have to stop and take a breath. So Claire describes this as you can talk, but you can't sing when you're in zone two. And then technically it's 60 to 70% of your maximal predicted heart rate. Um, if we can get 30 to 45 minutes of this, maybe 3 times a week, we're doing really good. Wearables like the Whoop Band, the Apple Watch, we had a reference and recommendation on that earlier. Really agreed. The Garmin is really good. If you're training for any type of an activity, if you're doing couch to 5K or if you're training for your full first 100-mile ultra race, the Garmin watch is really nice because it'll help track what you're doing and it'll help you with your workout for next time. So it sees how you're performing. It does it with GPS and biometric data, and it'll recommend what you can do for the next workout. Daily movement and recovery. Also talked a little bit about this during the break. I think it's very important that we maintain mobility. We can have a goal of like 10,000 steps per day. If you're working in a clinic, you're probably not coming close to that. If you're a hospitalist, you're far exceeding that. But it's something that we need to pay attention to. Prioritizing sleep and hydration is important. As far as rest goes, one of my CrossFit coaches taught me that I should rest 1 day per week, 1 week per month, and 1 month per year. And that sounded like a whole lot of rest to me. And this was 15 years ago when I was gung ho and like, if I'm not bleeding, it's not hurting. And, I didn't start listening to this guy until about 5 years ago. And now I think this is really great advice. Our body needs time to adapt and recover if we're going to be able to excel and move on to the next level physically. So I think that's important. Something that's not on the slide that was brought up during the break is the importance of balance also. And that'll be something that I'll add on the next presentation because it's also critical that we do that. There's an app that I recommend. It's called Mobility Coach. It's by a guy named Kelly Starrett. He's a physical therapist out in California. He was big in the CrossFit movement 15, 20 years ago, and he's remained an important fixture on people that get hurt doing CrossFit, and we probably all know somebody. He helps to get them put back together. So much of his stuff is on prevention. It's on using things like foam rollers on the daily to try to keep your soft tissues mobile and relaxed, to keep your tendons and ligaments from getting too tight. He also has great maneuvers that you can do. A lot of what he does is also about balance and proprioception. When we're 65, we want to stand up off the couch, not get dizzy, and we also want to have the muscle to get up with. And so all of this stuff comes together when you start thinking of that whole package. So if you're putting together your workout, you're going to do it in a deal like this. And this is not a specifically recommended workout protocol, but it's an idea of one. And you're going to have to just build this to suit yourself. You could also join a gym and hire a trainer, or you could go to a CrossFit box and get tortured for 45 minutes every day. Christy and I started using an app that I really like to recommend. It's called The Ladder, Ladder. And how many coaches are available on this app? Dozens. Yeah, but there may be 100 different coaches, and each one has kind of a specialty that they do. We do kind of a Pilates type of workout. It's 7 days a week. It's built really smart. 5 days a week, it's 45 minutes of something, a little bit of weightlifting, a lot of balance and mobility stuff. And then there's a day of yoga, then there's a day of breath work. And I think all of that stuff works really well. But people like Ben Greenfield also use the Ladder. It's a really good app. It costs us what, $350 a year? Not even that. Okay, so less than 200 bucks for a year's worth. And the coaches are really good. Christy has DM'd our coach and she responded back like in 10 minutes. So it's really a pretty cool app. And if you have a hard time getting somewhere to work out and building a gym at your house is really not an option, that might be something to look into. Ladder, yeah. Peloton, yeah. Hmm. Yep. Okay. It'll build it for you. Nice. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. And so this is a Peloton app, which may or not go in alongside the Peloton bike. Gotcha. Yep. Nike does? Okay. Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They do, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, the industry is exploding with this stuff, isn't it? And it's a great time to embrace that, lean into it, get some. There's excitement with it right now. I think it's a good time to jump on the bandwagon and get going with it. You mentioned Peloton. It makes me think of another bike. If you're looking at a Peloton bike, there's a bike called the Carol bike, Carol, and its forte is in providing a HIIT workout. So you're going to cycle for 5 minutes and you're done for the day. They say it's grueling, but you want to do this particular exercise like 3 or 4 days per week. And that's going to, it's been shown in a scientific study to make a significant difference in VO2 maxes. So, yeah, there's just, I mean, the list goes on and on out there. Absolutely. Okay, sleep. Sleep is probably the most essential thing that we could really talk about. I know I talk a lot about exercise, but if you're not sleeping well, if you're not waking up refreshed, if your body doesn't have time to repair and turn over, detox, heal up, get some HGH floating around, nothing's going to work well. But even worse than that, if you're not sleeping well for the next 20 years, guess what you're going to have? You're going to have heart disease and you're going to have Alzheimer's disease and you're going to have cancer. Those four horsemen, all those chronic diseases are developing because of a lack of paying attention to our sleep. Sleep regulates our hormones. It supports our memory and our emotions. It facilitates detox. Remember the lymphatic system. It does all of these things, and it's critical that we pay attention to it. So let's review right quick the big stages of sleep. I think there are, like, I focus on three: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. If you look at light sleep, it's going to be happening on and off all throughout the night. And so it makes up at least 50% of our sleep per night. This stage is when we do things like let our nervous system recalibrate. It sets the stage then for deeper, more restorative sleep. So there are two phases of light sleep. There's an S1 and an S2. S1, we're in for like a minute, and then you go straight into S2. And so S2 then during the first half of the night is going to kind of alternate between light sleep and deep sleep. And deep sleep is where a lot of the magic happens. It's going to be maybe 20, 25% of the sleep that we get per night. And this is where repair happens. This is where we release growth hormone. This is where the brain detoxifies with the lymphatic system. It's like a nightly tune up for your body, realistically from head to toe. And remember that that happens alternating with the stage one or light sleep back and forth during the first half of the night. In the second half of the night, we're going to bounce between light sleep and REM sleep. You guys remember that REM sleep is like where your brain's really alert. You're still sleeping, but a lot of things are happening. This is where we're processing things. We're processing our emotionals. We're solidifying memories. This is where our creativity happens. So it's a really important aspect of it. This ought to be like 20, 25% of the sleep that we get per night. Aura rings are great for tracking sleep, right, Noel? Like I love to get up every morning and look at my Aura ring and see what it was like, because that tells you a lot about what's going to happen for the day. It's amazing how well it predicts it. We go through like 4 to 6 cycles per night, and it's never so much about how much of one thing can you get. We really need balanced sleep throughout the night. So all of these phases are important. You can't say that one is more important than the other. It's all about some degree of keeping it balanced for optimal sleep. So we need like 7 to 9 hours. You guys know that. Who got that in the last month? It's hard to do, if you got a busy job, if you got kids, if you've got, if you're sick, if somebody gets sick at the house, if you have parents that are having problems. We've entered that stage of our life here recently. And so all of those things are stressors. We may be sore from working out and it keeps us from sleeping well. But the target that I've got for myself is 7 hours. I know if I get 7 hours, I feel much better. It's always important for me to keep in mind the things that will disrupt my sleep. Getting older is going to make it harder to sleep. And so I have to work harder on the other stuff because I can't stop the birthday candles. But minimizing stress, we can only minimize it, I think, in our profession so much. And so we have to learn how to manage it well. More on that in a minute. Consuming alcohol, especially in the evening, and then eating within a couple hours of bedtime can also interfere with your sleep. And then we've talked about some of the medications that can interfere with sleep as well. So by using my Aura ring, well, I've got this for my birthday last July, and my sleep score was like 60, and I knew it was going to be bad, but it's 60 out of 100. And like, what does that even classify as, Claire? Pre-morbid, maybe. It's awful. Yeah. And so because of that, we got the dogs out of our bed. Well, most nights anyway. There's a light, there's a security light out by the barn that shines into our bedroom window. So I put up blackout curtains. I don't ever drink caffeine, or rarely ever drink caffeine after noon. I rarely drink alcohol in the evening anymore, unless we're at a Stars game. We're big Dallas Stars hockey fans, and so you can't go to a hockey game and not have a brewski. Um, I also wake up at the same time every morning, 7 days a week. My alarm goes off at 5:30, and except for Friday, for whatever reason, I overslept the alarm. But I get up at the same time every day, and then I lower the temperature in the bedroom. A chilly environment makes a big difference also. Those things, and following what happened on my Aura ring, I went from running in the 60s to the 80s in about a 3-month period. It makes a huge difference on how you feel. It makes a huge difference how you interact with your family and your coworkers. And heaven forbid that patient that's new at 4:30 on a Thursday afternoon when you're trying to get to your kid's soccer game, right? Um, it makes a difference in how we're feeling in general. Okay, I've seen several of you guys taking pictures of a screen as we go along. If you take one picture today, it should be of this screen. Sleep is very important. I stole all of this stuff from a guy named Andrew Huberman. He's in California, works at USC. I think his background is neuro-ophthalmology. Did you? Yeah, he's a PhD guy. Yeah, he's a podcaster, and he's a bigger nerd than Naveen and I are, and that's saying a lot. he'll have like a 3-hour podcast with some other PhD, and like they're talking about all of this stuff about sleep or about peptides, and like they get into the weeds. He's really good about sleep. All of these things are very important. From listening to him, the thing that I've gleaned that has helped me the most is to anchor your wake up time. 7 days a week, you should be waking up at the same time every day. But all of this stuff is important. When we're using our R ring to track these things, whether it's sleep or whatever, remember that this is going to give us valuable insight, but it's not something to become obsessed over. I haven't ever had the time to become obsessed over it. I think I could pretty easily. But what it's really about is recognizing patterns and then seeing if we can make changes to make the pattern look better. So for me, it's been like A B testing. I'm not sleeping good at night. My score's lousy. I put in blackout curtains. You know what? My score came up 8 points over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, so now I'm going to have to talk Christy into making the doodles sleep in the beds next to us instead of up there between us. And you know what? My score came up another 5 or 7 points. And so by doing that A/B testing, following the data from my ring, I was able to make small adjustments that over a few months made a big difference in how I'm sleeping and how I'm feeling and functioning. So sleep can become a strategic recovery tool, and it's a key component of healthy living and of longevity. Okay, the next thing to touch on is HRT and TRT. These are crucial to manage well as we age. And you guys know I'm passionate about this because that's the reason I got into longevity medicine to begin with, out of self-preservation, right? So um, sex hormones affect every cell in our body, and that doesn't change just because we turn 50. And as people go through the changes, whether it's andropause for men or perimenopause for women, we see a lot of symptoms develop. That's what Christy was going through whenever we got her hormones straightened out. It made a world of difference in how she felt and how she functioned. It made me a very happy person to see my wife back functioning well, like I knew that she used to and that she could again. But I think more importantly, maybe, are the benefits that we get in the long run. There are so many health benefits of managing hormones appropriately that make a difference in how we age. So using bioidenticals, I like them because we're using what our body would be making naturally anyway. So it's the same chemical structure identically, but really, the more important thing to me is that I can really individualize a dose. There's never a one size fits all. So, whether you're doing oils or creams or gels, even pellets, you can really tailor the dose to the person and to their symptoms, and it makes a big difference. For women who come to see me for BHRT, the most common symptoms that they present with in perimenopause are brain fog, warm rushes, night sweats, and that mood irritability. And a lot of you may know what I'm talking about there. Christy, I was hearing her share during the break that what really got her stirred up was the anxiety that she felt. And that anxiety can wind up with her going to see the cardiologist because she's having palpitations at night. And that's a pretty common theme. And so getting these hormones under control then leads to a reduction of symptoms. That makes me as the provider feel very good about myself. But really, I prefer to use them in the long run for all of the long-term benefits like brain health, heart health, bone density, and maintaining muscle mass. Um, when yeah, whenever I'm using hormones, I like to use a topical preparation. That's a picture of the bottle down on the bottom at the right. I like doing topicals on a daily basis because I can micromanage the dose kind of day to day, which is really helpful when you're getting somebody started. But it's also nice whenever they're having a stressful period, whether they're ill or their child is sick or they're going on vacation. Our hormones don't stay the same all the time when we're 20 or 30. They're fluctuating based on the needs around us. And so by using something like this and properly training a patient to listen to his or her symptoms, we can allow a slight amount of day-to-day titration based on some of that. I don't like to put the hormones into creams and gels because for those to get through the skin properly, you have to have a solvent in it. Solvents are petroleum chemicals most commonly. I don't like the idea of doing that to my skin and my system for the next 25 years. So we have ours made up in jojoba oil, which is a very hippie, organic, nothing weird in it, oil that soaks in very well. It brings the medicine through the tissue nicely. And that's the direction that I prefer to go, although we can do other things as well. Pellets are also very common. I have a lot of patients that are on pellets. I don't do them myself, however, but I have somebody I can send them to. And so TRT for men, guys are going to come to me. They feel lazy. You know, they get home from work and they got a list of chores to do and they just can't get around to them. Their drive is gone. Maybe even their drive at work to get out and get stuff done, to be proactive about going for a promotion. Those kind of things start to wane. Lack of gains in the gym. Man, if I've heard that once, I've heard it 100 times. Doc, I used to be jacked. I could bench press whatever. Now I go in there and I just want to go home. A lot of times it's because of this. It could be other things as well, but it could be this. Waning libido is another common complaint. Testosterone is not always the answer for that. We're all fully aware, but it can be helpful. Same long-term benefits for men as women. And I recommend the same topical treatment for guys. For some guys, their skin, maybe it might be 1 out of 20, their skin doesn't seem to absorb the medicine and the oil as well. And so I kind of revert back to shots for those guys. Um, I found that doing shots a couple times a week keeps a more physiologic level rather than having a lot of spikes and drops. Seems to give a little bit better experience. Has anybody heard of enclomiphene? Yeah, so this is a isomer of clomiphene, Clomid, the fertility drug. And so enclomiphene is a SERM. It's going to trick the pituitary into thinking that there's no estrogen, and it's going to then therefore increase the production of LH and FSH, which is going to tell the testes to make more testosterone. So for men that are younger, that may have a little bit of an issue between their hypothalamus and their pituitary, if that system's not functioning well because they're stressed, they're overworked. It's something that we see a lot in combat veterans with PTSD. Using enclomiphene to increase endogenous testosterone production is the way I like to start younger guys. So I see a lot of guys in their 40s. Most men in their 50s can respond well to this. Obviously, there's going to be a point where the testes are done. It doesn't matter how much enclomiphene you give them, like they're not going to make enough testosterone to move the needle. And so it doesn't work forever. But I do have a guy that just turned 68 that's still doing great on enclomiphene, which kind of surprises me. I use a lot of enclomiphene in my practice. It's very well tolerated. And if you're interested in that, you would have to get more education on it, find somebody that uses it to get some experience. And then you'll have to find a compounding pharmacist. This stuff has not been FDA studied or at all. And so you can't get it at your Walmart or CVS pharmacy. But a lot of compounding pharmacies do carry it. I also add a daily tadalafil to my men that I'm treating. Yeah. This stuff is great. Not only does it help with ED, it helps everything. Yeah. The happiest guys in my longevity practice are the dudes that take in clomiphene and tadalafil. I also work in one of my telemedicine gigs. I'm one of the doctors on the Maximus platform. And you have to read, patients come back and they've got this isn't working. And I'm upset about that. Nobody ever bitches about enclomiphene. Like, yes, please don't make me be late on a shipment. That's all they care about. It's good for heart health. I think it's a great pre-workout. It gives you a little bit of a muscle pump. It increases vascularity during the exercise period. So I recommend to my guys trying to take it about an hour before they go to the gym. It's hard to do that. I tend to just take all my medicine in the morning. I usually go to the gym late afternoon. Um, you can do this alone or in combination with some form of testosterone treatment. Things that you need to monitor, of course, like with most things. The big pitfall, if they start having headaches, if there's any history of like pituitary disease, pituitary adenomas, especially, you've got to be careful and maybe choose not to use enclomiphene. Um, I said all that about enclomiphene, not tadalafil. Sorry. I see those two as like a 1-2 punch. I need to talk to my compounding pharmacist about just making one pill with both. Then I'll be done with that. Do what? It is cheap. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 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 it's dirt cheap. Um, I get that shipped with my oils for $0 extra. Yeah, it's so cheap they don't even put it on the bill anymore. Yeah. So the things that I think every practitioner should know if you're going to help people with bioidentical hormones, this is like my list of pearls. First of all, is start low and go slow when you're treating somebody that's in a change period. And I think it's helpful to use validated symptom scores. I like the Adams score for men. We have our own whenever we're doing the HRT for women. It's always important to select appropriate patients. I think that goes without saying. And I get asked a lot, and Claire can vouch for this because she runs my social media. Hey, doc, how long do I have to be on TRT or HRT? Well, I answer the question with another question. How long would you like to feel good? How long would you like to support your muscles? How long would you like to support your brain and your heart health? When you're older and you have a fall, would you like to be able to have strong bones that prevent breaking, or would you rather just natural course proceed and you fracture a hip and wind up in the nursing home? We know the statistics on all of that stuff. It's bleak. And so I like to just answer the question with the question. I see a lot of providers are shy or bashful about saying, you need to be on this for the rest of your life. I don't think we should shy away from that if we're really going to do this. I believe in this stuff. I think it makes a big difference. It's not for everybody, and I understand that. But for the people that it's going to be for, that are going to benefit from it, which is probably most of us, if you look at it across the board, I think it's important that we recognize that this is a long term strategy. All right, stress management. Yeah, I got, let me go back here first. Sorry. Yes, it depends. You've got to take that full history. What's their menstrual cycle history like? When was the last period? What's going on with them? For women that are postmenopausal, it's been a year since they've had one. I will treat them. And I know that's a little bit different from what you read from the Menopause Society and some of those recommendations. So much of that is based on symptom control. And what we're doing in longevity medicine, though, is try to be a little more proactive than that. And so the reason I say it's not for everybody is because our mindset shifted severely in 2001 with the WHI study. And so I went through medical school being trained to treat based on symptoms, but to think of it as a long term thing. After I started my practice in 2001, like 3 months later, we got that study and we stopped doing hormones completely. And so it's taken a long time for some of this stuff to turn around. And so I'm probably out there on the leading edge as far as being aggressive about treatment. But I have all those conversations with the patient and ultimately let them make that decision. Yeah, it's a good question. Great question. So for men, I'm following symptoms first, blood levels second, because I want to make sure we're not just going crazy. I don't need any Arnold Schwarzeneggers in my practice, right? So we're trying to treat physiologically. I don't want to see crazy high numbers. For women, I found that blood testing is not very dependable because there's so much flexibility or mobility in those numbers. So what we do initially is we'll treat for the first 3 months, starting the treatment and the first 3 months of titration based on symptoms. And once we get their symptoms dialed in pretty well, then we do 24-hour urine testing where we check for all the hormones and quite a few metabolites. And so that lets us know a lot about where the body is diverting any excess hormones to make sure that we're not causing any problems downstream. Yep. Good question. So the answer is both. And I lean on symptoms the most for finding the right dose. I use the lab data to just back up and verify that what we're doing is safe and appropriate. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how we titrate that. So it's an oil. You shake it up, get the medicine suspended in the jojoba oil, and then you apply just a few drops on a daily basis. And so by adjusting that dose, the woman is going to feel the difference that it makes in their body after just a couple of days at a new dose. And so I give them the leeway to titrate that. We visit with them probably on an every 2 week basis. And I've got a health coach that is on the oils for a couple of years and is really good about it, that they can always, bounce problems and troubleshoot with. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. If you start having breast tenderness, you need to back off of your Biast. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thankful for that. Yeah. So there's a lot of education that goes into this. Really, all of longevity is about education. And even though we're using, real medicine and one controlled substance with the hormone replacement, it's still about educating the patient, giving them the tools and then the knowledge base. And as their experience with, I've got a pharmacist that's been on it now for a little over a year, probably. And she speaks so highly of it. She loves it. She has a lot of education, but even with her, there was a learning curve on it because she was experimenting, if you will, on what it does for her body. And yeah, correct. I don't find that. Now, I do find that guys on enclomiphene will eventually quit making enough testosterone to make a difference. But when I'm doing like real TRT, um, I think we keep their levels pretty steady over time. I don't see a tolerance built up. I've been using this oil system now for 2 years, and so I can speak to that length of time. The guy that came up with this particular protocol that I follow has been doing it for about 25 years, and he'll have the same thing to say. Um, it's interesting about guys and testosterone levels, though, and this goes a little bit to your question as well, Naveen, that this guy's Dr. David Rosensweet. He's in Saratoga, Florida, and he's on the oils. He's like 80 years old, and he still speaks all over the country. He's a really, really nice, fantastic person, great doctor. And he was noticing a lot of patients having different levels whenever they would test them. And so he got to wondering, I wonder what it does during the day when you put the oil on. So he started doing studies of like what happens at time zero, then you apply the oil and check the lab 2 hours later, and then 2 hours after that, in 2 hour increments over the course of maybe 12 hours. And they did that several times, and the testosterone levels were all over the place. And it reminds me that you've got a needle in an arm for 6 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, drawing a tube of blood. And that's what we're going to test to get a blood level with. And we have to recognize that there's going to be some test to test error with that, right? And so I go a lot by symptoms because of that. If my patient is feeling good and their total testosterone, is 480, but they feel great and they're vigorous and doing what they want to do, I'm not going to try to push them up to an 800 because that's what they read on a blog. I'm going to say your symptoms are controlled. Your number is not anywhere near a scary level. So let's keep it the same dose. Mhm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. So I think I guard from that by my focus. Really, I'm upfront about this. Visit one with the patient is we're going to do this physiologically. If you want to go do anabolic steroids and hit the gym hard and be a metalhead, that's not what I do. So I monitor people closely. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, they're kind of getting both. Yeah, I don't know why. I have patients that come to Maximus and they're on both, and they're on HCG and they're wanting to add in clomiphene. I'm like, no, you pick one of them. Yeah, 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 yeah. I see that a lot with patients that do pellets. Bec- Yeah, yes, sir. It's a great question. I do see occasionally people on enclomiphene develop high blood pressure. I have seen that. I have not seen it with testosterone, but it's probably because I'm a pretty conservative user of it. I do know that that can happen. Second part of your question was, oh, in topical? Yes. My theory on that is you get a dose of testosterone, your levels skyrocket, you're your RBCs are probably going to get pumped up higher at that point. So you've got increased viscosity. And then that starts to come down maybe. So the up and down seems to be what causes the elevation in hemoglobins and probably the correlation with high blood pressure in people that are doing injectables. Because of that, when I switch somebody from the oil to an injectable, I do it twice a week so that we can use lower doses. And this is kind of weird. You guys may not like this, but I inject it sub-Q. I use a 5/8 inch needle. It just goes in a little bit, but it's a small amount. Like we're doing a 0.3 ml dose of 200 milligrams per ml twice a week. And I'll usually get better lab numbers and better symptom control than doing 200 milligrams once a week. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 There you go. There you go. Yeah. Right. Yeah. They're getting the clinical benefit they're looking for. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, great question. So when you use clomiphene at 25 milligrams and you're doing like a 3 day a week, you get some weird side effects. Like it turns apical sweat gland sweat yellow. And so guys will come in with yellow armpits all the time. It's really weird off kind of, yeah, you eliminate that. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is the L isomer. The other, so it's enclomiphene and zooclomiphene are the two, and it seems like a lot of those side effects happen with the zooclomiphene. So I can dose up to 25 milligrams of enclomiphene on the daily and get typically a doubling of baseline testosterone levels. Very well tolerated. Let's talk about stress management. Not nearly as exciting as sex hormones, but probably more important. Well, I don't know. This stuff is also important. Okay, so stress is going to increase inflammation. It's going to increase cortisol levels. It messes up all kinds of hormones. It leads to greater illness vulnerability, and we've probably seen that in ourselves. Stress impairs sleep. It messes with our cognitive functioning, and it's linked to nearly every chronic disease out there. So mindfulness and meditation are really important. They have been shown to lower cortisol levels. They've been shown to reduce inflammation. They will boost your heart rate variability. In fact, this is the best way to make your HRV on your R ring or whoop band or whatever increase. They will enhance mental clarity. They will give you a sense of calm, and they will give you resilience in your body. And really just starting with like a 5 or 10 minute per day practice can start to move the needle in real ways. Techniques like breath work, body scans. You guys know what a body scan is? It's where you like lay down on your back. You've done it before. You start with the top of your head. You just think about relaxing, and you just kind of go inch by inch all the way down to your toe. Maybe 3 to 5 minutes, just relaxing one level after the other. Doing that kind of thing. Doing guided breath work can be helpful as well. There are lots of good apps out there. You can use your Peloton app. You can use your Noom app. You can use your um, um, Aura Ring app. Yeah, there are all kinds of them. A couple of really popular ones, if you're looking at it's some more intensive stuff with meditation, is Headspace, and another one called Calm. So I, I'm not a big mindfulness and meditation guy. It's hard for me to slow down enough to actually get that done. I've started to recognize the importance of it, and I'm starting to see the difference in my HRV score and in the way I feel as I've incorporated this into a morning routine. And I did that because I get beat up by one of my buddies who is a doctor out in Honolulu. He works at Queens Hospital. He runs their obesity clinic, and he's really an expert in lifestyle medicine. I kind of think of him as one of the gurus in that area. He's also certified as a transcendental meditation coach. And he is working with the administration at Queens right now to start a meditation program at the hospital for employees. This is actually a big nationwide effort. If any of the, and I see that our boss has left the room during this, but if anybody is interested in bringing meditation, Noel, into the hospital, my buddy out in Honolulu would love to carry on that conversation to explain what their process has been like, how it's working, and the pitfalls with it. But a very important thing. I really like tracking HRV levels. I think that doing that with your mindfulness and meditation can really be a demonstration to you about the difference that it can make. You're also going to feel better. Spirituality and purpose go hand in hand with that. We know that these things are linked to all cause mortality. They will increase our resilience to disease and to stress. Ways to integrate it are things that I don't like to do, like journaling. Gratitude practice, I'm probably okay with. I'm a religious person and I'll pray, and I think I do a lot of gratitude there. Participating in spiritual or religious communities is also a good way to find that purpose that we can have a real meaningful life revolving around. Some a recommended reading on this is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Has anybody read that? I've heard about it. I've read parts of it, but I'm probably going to dig into that a little bit. It's a book that Greg, my buddy out in Honolulu, told me about. So these things are all meaningful. Social connection. Are you guys aware that loneliness in the elderly carries the same risk as smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day? Yeah, like that's a real statistic. So, we see this in our practices. We see this in people that are frequent flyers in the emergency room. I don't know what the solution is for this. There are so many things you could say about society and the work that we need to do there, but ourselves and with our families, we need to prioritize face-to-face interactions. Do you guys remember COVID and everything was 6 feet away? If you even went into public and you saw every patient on a telephone, and then you got to start seeing people in clinic again. Like I was giving people bear hugs in the hallway when they were walking in. I was so happy to see them again. Face to face is so much better than, a screen to screen call. I think we need to keep that in mind. If you need to join some type of a social group, it could be a book club, it could be a walking group, it could be a group like this. I think I mentioned that earlier when we started this morning. There's a lot of benefit in the camaraderie in this room. And if you can't find the club, then create it. There'll be somebody that'll go along with you. And then the point to treat social fitness like we do physical fitness, and let's actively nurture relationships because they really do make a difference. A quick word on infrared sauna. I don't have one of these yet, but I'm working on Christy to get the okay because I'm going to put one out in the man cave. Lots of benefits of infrared sauna. Most of these studies came from Finnish saunas, but infrareds are much cheaper. They're much easier to maintain, and you can put them out in the garage pretty easily. They will reduce stress, as evidenced by increased in HRV. They decrease the risk of heart disease and dementia. We're aiming for a 20-minute sauna 3 days a week at a temperature of about 140 degrees. Do not jump into a sauna and start doing that from the get-go. You're going to pass out. So you start with less time, a lower temperature, and you build up over time. Cold exposure, we had a couple in the room that admitted to doing ice baths. I have a swimming pool in the backyard. I'm going to jump in that during the wintertime. It doesn't take much during the spring and summer for the water to warm up in the shower. And so, I'll try to jump in a cold shower for the first 30 seconds while the water's warming up. It's brutal. I hate it. It really makes a difference. If you're going to do it, you want to do it 2 to 4 times per week. You want the temperature to be 50 degrees. That's what moves the needle on the longevity numbers. And again, building up tolerance is really encouraged. I added on here breath work. Has anybody heard of Wim Hof? You got to go to YouTube and look at Wim Hof, Wimhof. The Wim Hof method. It's this really weird guy who does really intensive breath work stuff. He's got some great things that you can follow along with and do breath work. It's amazing how much this is going to engage your parasympathetic system, relax your tone, it make you feel so much better. There are methods that can get you kind of hyped up in case you need some mental energy. There are methods that can slow you down in case you're coming in from, a call night and you need to get some sleep, but you're still really amped up with adrenaline. This can help to take some of that off. Wim Hof is crazy though. He does breath work while he's in his ice bath. And I just want to point out that you should go watch Wim Hof, but do not try to do breath work while you're doing a cold plunge. You're going to pass out and drown. And I don't want any part of that on my conscience. So this is your longevity stress toolkit then. We need to do some daily meditation or maybe breath work. We want to incorporate some sauna and some cold exposure, whether that be a real ice plunge or just a cold shower. Let's find some meaningful social time. Journaling and reflection are important. And then tracking your HRV to measure progress is really helpful. All right, so a quick word about blue zones. I saw a lot of heads nodding earlier, so I don't have to spend much time on this, but if you haven't heard about them, these are 5 regions in the world. They were found by this guy from National Geographic, where the average person is expected to live well into their 90s and be very healthy at that time. And so studies are being done, have been done, and are ongoing about what these communities are doing that are maybe making the difference. And so the places are Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Icaria, Greece, and then in the good old US, we have Loma Linda, California. And so when you look at the areas where these places have some similar principles, it boils down to these 9 key points. First of all, these people move naturally. They walk almost everywhere they go. They're out in their garden doing some manual labor. They're doing chores and they're using their hands and their body to get these things done. The second thing is they have a purpose. In Japan, they have their ikigai. I don't know if you guys have ever looked into having an ikigai, that thing before, but that's an interesting concept. I think it's a fun exercise to go through. They also know how to downshift and have a siesta mid afternoon, have some prayer time, do some stress relief during the day. They also live at the dinner table by the 80% rule. They don't eat till they're full. In a lot of Americans, we eat well beyond the time that we're full. They stop when they're feeling about 80% satiated. Their diets have a strong plant-based slate. And then wine at 5. Wine at 5 is wine with friends. And I'm a little bit confused if it's the alcohol or the friends that make a difference on here. I see all of the research coming out about alcohol having significantly bad outcomes. And I'm really inclined right now to think that it's the time with friends and it's the wine that's bringing them together. I think that social connection is a powerful, powerful thing. Belonging is another thing that you'll see. Number 7, most of these places have a deep faith-based community participation, and then they have loved ones first. A lot of these places incorporate multi-generational living. They really take care of their family members. And then there's a thing called the right tribe. It's a social circle, right? So this is a culture where people are doing these things and it gets passed on to the next generation. And so you've got a handful of people that are living and breathing and doing the same thing decade after decade, generation after generation. So what's the big idea? We don't have time to even consider moving to one of the blue zones. So let's bring it to us. But first of all, you've got to recognize that longevity is a lifestyle. It's not a supplement that you go pick up at GNC, right? This is decisions that we make on a daily basis. We have to be consistent. We have to be purposeful. And as much as we can, we need to keep it simple. So we don't need to move to a blue zone. We can bring it to where we're at. So let's talk momentarily about technology. We've talked a little bit about the R ring. I feel like the R ring is really good for a lot of the people in the room. I compare it a lot to the Apple Watch. The difference to me is that the R ring, you have to charge once a week. The Apple Watch, you have to charge every night. That might be changing with the newer version coming out, but sleep scoring is such an important thing to me. I went with the R ring. The next one is going to be the Whoop Band. And so the Whoop Band is this, it looks like a bracelet. It almost looks like a watch, but there's no screen on it. It, like the R ring, just sends data to an app on your phone. I think of the Whoop Band as for somebody that may be a little bit more athletic. A lot of the people that do CrossFit like to wear Whoop Bands. It works out well with them. It's hard to do barbell lifting with a ring on. I've scratched up mine really badly trying to do that. And so I think like high performer type people like the Whoop Band. The ultimate, though, along that line is the Garmin watch. This is for people that are training that are pretty serious. It does a great job of measuring your sleep. It also will give you a VO2 max. That's a pretty cool feature. And it has a training module in it where it'll tell you, hey, your workout for your 5K really wasn't up to par. Let's try to do this in the coming week. And it can build out a whole training program for you. So how do you integrate this in? I think you start looking at what your personal goals are, what type of motivation that you could get from it, and when you get started with some type of a wearable, watch for the red flags like a low HRV, poor sleep. I'll share with you guys that up to 3 weeks ago, I had never had COVID. I finally got it last month. Like the first 3 months COVID was out, Christy got it. She had pneumonia. We treated her at the house. I never had a symptom. I did antibody testing like 6, 8 weeks later, nothing. 3 months later, nothing. I bet I've tested 20 times over the last, what's it been, 5 years? I've never found myself to have COVID. Came back from Portland. I kind of felt a little under the weather. I looked at my R ring. My respiratory rate had gone up from like 12 to 18. My heart rate had gone up from a baseline of 55 to like 75. All of the numbers were off, and it gave me a text message saying, something is wrong. You're probably ill. Pay attention. By lunchtime that day, I was 102 fever, felt like hell, tested positive for COVID, went home for the rest of the week. Pretty impressive how these things will pick up on that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's get the most out of our wearables, but let's don't get overwhelmed by them. So, in summary, have you guys ever heard how to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Thank you. Yeah. So when you hear a talk like this, I really tried to cover almost everything out there. We probably covered half of it, but don't be overwhelmed. Find something that is key and actionable and important to you that you might want to start to integrate into your life. Let's have a win and let's see if that can turn into a second interest. And if we get a win there, then can we turn that into another interest? And so we can build on this. It's taken me 3 or 4 years to get up to the longevity stack that I like to do today. Remember also that exercise can cover a multitude of sins. A bad diet, a bad night's sleep, a lot of these things can be taken care of if we can keep our exercise regimen going. Be sure you don't let that go. Incorporate some form of caloric restriction or fasting on a regular basis, whether that be intermittently or quarterly with a longer fast. Prioritize sleep. And I think the first way we should start doing that is by anchoring our wake up time. And then when the time comes in your life, be sure that you have somebody that's really an expert to help you with your hormones. Manage your stress well. This is a key one for us. Been do it in ways that fit you best. I think it's important to lean into your community. Communities like this are amazing. And then explore the technologies. Don't get overwhelmed by them. Help them to motivate you and to find areas that you can make changes in your life. And with that,